Well, Northwest University conflict criminologist Dr. Casper Lotter says South Africa's approach to punishing criminal offences is a catastrophic failure. Research shows between 86 and 94% of convicted criminals reoffend after leaving prison. Want to talk to us about how we deal with this? We are joined by Correctional Services spokesperson Singabakho Nxumalo, who joins us for more. So, of course, Mr. Nxumalo, thank you so much for your time. We're really having a bit of a litmus test, if you will, on South Africa's confidence levels in how we deal with crime in South Africa. We've talked about some of the flaws in getting to a conviction, but then there's the issue about what happens after we get a conviction, and seemingly that continues to be an issue. Just the data that you have on correctional services as to, out of the convicted criminals that we do have that do then get sentenced and spend time behind bars, your data on how many of them we see reoffending.
A very good evening, and thank you for having us. What we can say is that Correctional Services is located at the tail end of the criminal justice system. Meaning all other processes, will take place, and once a person has been convicted, that person is sent to us with a warrant of detention, clearly stipulating what the offense is and the years that the person must serve. At times, we don't even get much detail, even in terms of how the crime was committed. Hence, we have to do our own assessment. Then we'll then throw up what we call a correctional sentence plan, which will then guide the rehabilitation journey of that person until such time that this person is eligible to be considered for parole placement. And being considered for parole placement doesn't guarantee that a person will be placed out. You ought to meet a specific criteria for that, and there are parole boards tasked with that responsibility. Coming to your question, South Africa does not have a measure in terms of reoffending, because it goes beyond the work of correctional services, because someone may have been through the system, placed out on parole, served that time, finished a sentence, and that person is now an ex-offender, is even removed from our system. But years later, that person commits another crime and then is taken through the criminal justice system once more. So you will then need now other players within the criminal justice system, even beyond us, to then say, this person is now coming back for the second time or a third time. So it's something that is, we're looking at it as players within the criminal justice system, in saying that how do we ensure that the figures that we're able to collect are indeed true? Because what's happening, because of that gap, you then find people speculating, coming up with all sorts of figures, some even saying that 80% of people that have been in our system are repeat offenders, which is not the case, because that will mean every second person there to meet in a correctional facility has been there before, and that is not the case. But there is a need to say, how best scientifically can we come up with a measure that will indeed give us the correct figures?
Yeah, because that measure, again, so important for public perceptions, because if in our communities we know that an individual living with us is perhaps a parolee, number one, we can talk about the issue of stigma, and I know that that's a big talking point in ex-offenders. But there's also the issue of whether or not people are then able to rehabilitate and reintegrate that person into their society if there is a confidence that they have been rehabilitated, correct?
Yes, because as correctional services, we've gone beyond just the traditional means of placing people out and monitoring them and say our job is done because a person, is complying with the parole conditions. We've been engaging with different stakeholders, your traditional leaders, your counselors, structures there to find within communities, in saying that let us work together, because our main concern as correctional services is that some of the people that we place out do come back to our facilities, not because they wanted to go back into the life of crime, but because they are not accepted by those communities. And they will say to us, look, it's difficult, I've even lost support, because you cannot have a parolee who no longer has support to find for himself or herself. So as a department, we then started this particular task of saying, let's engage with those stakeholders. Let's see how best can work together. For instance, traditional leaders have said to us, call us when you're about to release a person so that we know who is the person that we are placing out, what was in prison for, what did he do, and as you are placing this person out, what type of skill this person benefited from, so that if there are other activities happening within our localities, we can then assist this person to then adjust or even to implant that particular knowledge to other people that are there, of which is something that we gladly welcome. And we've seen it working in some areas, but we just need better buy-in so that all other structures that are there do embrace and then assist this person, because whether you like it or not, the person that has been placed out from a correctional facility is vulnerable. Once this person is no longer able to provide or to be given any form of support, that person is likely to go back into the life of crime. So as a department, we are saying our job is done once a person has been placed out and served the sentence in its entirety. It is more about what is this person able to do to contribute positively in that society so that other people can benefit from that skill without having to come through our correctional system.
You know, I'm just seeing this statement coming from the Democratic Alliance where they're calling for interventions of collapsing the parole system. They're saying that the parole system is collapsing due to a severe underfunding, understaffing and years long of unfilled vacancies. So is there a capacity issue, I think, where the parole system is concerned? And they also are asking, you know, a few questions. What steps will be taken to protect whistleblowers who expose internal corruption within the parole system? If there is immediate remedial action that will be implemented to fully capacitate parole boards. So what is your response to that call that is being made there by the Democratic Alliance?
We're in Parliament just yesterday,
Yes,
where we gave a detailed presentation in terms of where we are with the review of the parole system. Why is this necessary? There's been a lot of uncomfortability and all sorts of opinions due to the fact that some of the parolees will commit heinous crimes and the country will be up in arms, and rightfully so. And it's something that as Correctional Services, we said we can't just sit back, pretend as if we cannot see what's happening. We then had to then look into our parole system and said there's definitely a need for a review. Where are these gaps? How best can we then address them? But we cannot do that on our own. Hence, then the system of reviewing the parole was initiated. It's been going on for a while, but it's involving a number of players. Hence, it's taking time. But we are saying that is correct, so that at the end of the day, we'll have a product where everyone will say, I contributed to that. At least we now have a parole system that we can say it's able to assist the country. It may not be 100% perfect, but at least it will address some of the concerns that people have been raising. So yesterday in Parliament, we presented there to say this is how far we are. The review will now be taken before Cabinet, but there is still a need to engage with other stakeholders. And once that is done, at least we can have, you know, a revised position paper that we can present, you know, to the country for everyone to go through and still make inputs where possible. But we also looked at capacitation of our community corrections, the parole boards. In a number of management areas, our parole boards were given 3-year contracts, and that time frame is too short. From time to time, you find that there are now vacancies, and it's taking a bit of time to fill those vacancies. So the discussion was to say, must we still keep it at 3 years, or must we extend it to 5 years? And what is it, the type of disciplines that we're looking at when we employ the parole board members? Because these are members from the community, the issue of competencies and how best are you able to remunerate them. So that was a discussion, and to say how best can we then fill up the vacancies which are there. So hence then other parties felt that perhaps the system is not moving at the speed that we want to see. There are these vacancies, but we also address it in saying that it does not mean that when we've got a parole board for Louis-Corp, it stays in Louis-Corp. You can rotate that parole board by taking it to sit for cases in Johannesburg. they can even go to other areas like your Boksburg. So as a department, we do have flexibilities, but there is a need of saying that National Treasury, if possible, they can, give us more money so that we can even employ more officials to do monitoring, get more members to serve within the parole boards. But it's something that has to be done in a systematic way so that at the end of the day, you're able to close the gaps which do exist currently.
Yeah, Singabakho, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Mr. Singabakho Nxumalo there, spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services. When you're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition, we take a short break. We do have more of your top stories on the other side of this. Stay with us.